Before diving into the details of creating web pages with HTML5 and CSS, it is useful to look at how these technologies relate to the development of the Internet and the World Wide Web. The Internet began with the connection of computers and computer networks. This connectivity has had a huge impact on our daily lives. Today, millions of people worldwide have access to the Internet, the world's largest network. In Module 1, you will learn how to get started with learning HTML5 and how to build your very first web page. You will learn and explore the history of the Internet, beginning with the formation of ARPANET, the first technical foundation of its kind that paved the way for the Internet, the formation of HTML, a document file that is read and rendered across various browsers. HTML is the markup language for building web pages, and traditionally has combined physical and logical structuring ideas. Elements, in the form of tags, are embedded within text documents to indicate to browsers how to render pages. The rules for HTML are fairly simple, and compliance can be checked with a process called validation. Unfortunately, these rules have not been enforced by browsers in the past. Because of this looseness, there has been a great deal of misunderstanding about the purpose of HTML, and a good portion of the documents on the web do not conform to any particular official specification of HTML. Stricter forms of HTML, and especially the introduction of XHTML, attempt to impose a more rigid syntax, encourage logical markup, and leave presentational duties to other technologies such as cascading style sheets. While very widespread, use of strict markup has yet to occur on the web. Web developers should aim to meet the standards to future-proof their documents and more easily address all the various issues that will certainly arise in getting browsers to render them properly. Beyond the standard forms of markup, there are of course various non-standard forms in play. For example, the browser vendors introduced various extensions to HTML, and interestingly continue to do so. We also have to contend with the ad hoc use of markup that doesn't really conform fully to any particular standard, other than to what usually renders in common web browsers. Such a tag soup is certainly not the best way to approach building web pages, regardless of whether browsers accept it. Standards for all forms of markup exist and should be adhered to whenever possible. Since its initial introduction in late 1991, HTML, and later its XML-based cousin XHTML, has undergone many changes. Interestingly, the first versions of HTML, used to build the earliest web pages, lacked a rigorous definition. Fortunately, by 1993, the Internet Engineering Task Force, IETF, began to standardize the language, and later, in 1995, released the first real HTML standard in the form of HTML 2.0. You will likely encounter more than just the latest style of markup for many years to come. Markup languages are ubiquitous in everyday computing. Although you may not realize it, word processing documents are filled with markup directives, indicating the structure and often presentation of the document. In the case of traditional word processing documents, these structural and presentational markup codes are more often than not behind the scenes. However, in the case of web documents, markup in the form of traditional hypertext markup language, HTML, and its extensible markup language, XML, focused variant, XHTML, is a little more obvious. These not-so-behind-the-scenes markup languages are used to inform web browsers about page structure, and some might argue presentation as well. Billions of web pages providing information on any subject you can imagine are currently available on the World Wide Web. People use the Internet to search for information, to communicate with others around the world, and to seek entertainment. Students register for classes, pay tuition, and find out final grades via this computer network. Stores and individuals sell their products using computer connectivity, and most industries rely on the Internet and the World Wide Web for business transactions. Hypertext Markup Language, HTML, and more recently HTML5 and Cascading Style Sheets, CSS, allow the World Wide Web to exist. In order to utilize these technologies effectively, you need to understand the main concepts behind the Internet and HTML. In this chapter, you learn some basics about the Internet, the World Wide Web, intranets, and extranets. You are introduced to web browsers, definitions of HTML and associated key terms, the 5 phases of the web development lifecycle, and the tasks that are involved in each phase. This module provides students with the knowledge and skills to understand different evaluation strategies for a user interface prototype and design, as well as develop interactive web application. Topics covered include Internet and HTTP protocol, basic web design principles, web interface and navigation, HTML, hypertext links, images, tables, frames, forms, and different evaluation methods. It also provides an overview of other web technology, such as web client and server-side programming, web development methodology, and web development platforms. In addition, students will appreciate various hardware and software platforms and learn basic web administration.